I've created a database, and inside of that database, I've created a table. You can see the structure of the table here. The big draw is this field, which is a var binary max size. Currently, I am growing this database to something interesting to make for a better demo. Right now, we're at about 660 gigabytes, let's call it. The way that I'm growing this database, or the var binary field in particular, is to simply place that PNG image into the field and do so hundreds of thousands of times to get to the database size that I desire. Ultimately, I want to be at 2 terabytes or so, but at 660 gig, I think you'll get the point of the technology here. Let's move over to Nutanix Era, and I've timed out, so let me log in here. And so here we are on the Era dashboard. Take you over to my operations history, and you can see that I've previously cloned the database that I'm currently growing. I've done that twice so far, and we'll go ahead and do it again, actually. The way that I kick off a clone of a SQL Server database or any database, go to Operations, I'll go to Time Machines. And Time Machines is a construct within Era that provides an automated way to back up databases, inclusive of giving you the ability to establish point-in-time recovery and cloning capabilities. We'll go ahead and do the cloning activity now. So I'll select the time machine, go to Actions, elect to create a database clone, and I'll start the process. So here I've got a point in time. I'll select that. This is the snapshot, the only snapshot from which to recover at the moment, fairly new database. Go ahead and say next. I want to create a new database server VM as a part of this process. Database name is fine. I'll choose the default compute profile, the default networking profile, and I'll enter the administrator's password. We'll go next. The defaults here are fine for demonstration purposes, but I do want to point out for you, you have the ability to schedule a refresh of this clone on a certain cycle if you'd like. I won't do that for this video, but just wanted you to know that that's a capability. You can also schedule the removal of this clone. All right, so gone are the days where you have to remember, or a dev has to remember to clean up after the clone is created. You can use the automation brought to you by Era to implement hygiene frequency if you'd like. And in this case, I'll go ahead and use this. I'll say, let's reclaim this in 10 days. And then we kick off our clone. So that cloning process is now underway. And as you can see from the previous activities, it's going to take about 10 minutes for that clone to finish. Now, we won't keep this video going for 10 minutes, but to prove to you that these cloning activities do actually work, I'm going to go ahead and connect to one of the previous clones. But before I do that, let me give you some additional insight into what's happening here. So you see right now, this has completed the pre-processing. It's now creating a database server VM. So we are cloning the virtual machine upon which the database sits. And then once that's done, we go through a registration process and a clone. Same process has occurred for these events that have completed previously. Now, where this gets interesting, there's a lot of interesting pieces, but let me draw your attention to the storage component. You'll remember that we have a database that is on the order of 660 gigabytes. We have 2 complete clones of that database so far, with a third one underway. However, if we look at the storage disposition, you'll notice that there's only about 582 gig being consumed. This is a clear indicator of the advantages brought to you by the Nutanix data platform and 0-byte clones. We're leveraging pointers to give access to the information needed, and only when changes occur do we allocate more space in the file system. So having to over-provision, over-purchase a bunch of storage to support your operations is no longer a thing. Very important point. Now, back to Era. To prove to you that these things do work, let's go ahead and connect to one of these clones. So I see the IP address for this new database server, 1055.1956. Let's go ahead and connect to it. I'll go to the SQL Server Management Studio. We will connect to another SQL server, 1055.1956, and the instance is called Nutanix. Say connect, and there we are. So we've connected to our database server clone, which in our case includes a full new database server VM. And we can see that our databases are here. In fact, I'll go ahead and get a new query. And we'll select from our large table. All right, and that's it. So what you've seen in this video is Nutanix and Nutanix Era kicking off a cloning process. You've seen 2 previously cloned processes having completed in about 10 minutes for a 600 some odd gigabyte database. You've seen storage efficiency prevent the unnecessary consumption of space, benefited by 0-byte clones and change tracking. You've seen that cloning process create a full database server VM, inclusive of the database engine and instance, and the ability to connect to the clone database, all within a matter of, the video's been running for about 9 minutes. And that's with me explaining the process. So there should be no doubt that Nutanix Era can bring tremendous operational efficiency to an organization's database portfolio.